Hi everyone, we're going to be taking a look at an add-on for Google Drive called Flubaroo. And what Flubaroo will let you do is grade quizzes that you create in Google Drive. And when it does the grading, as you're going to see in a few minutes, it'll do an item analysis. It'll let you inform students of their grades. It's a pretty cool product, and I think you're going to like it. So what I've got here, I'm in my Google Drive account right now, my school Google Drive account, and we can ignore these for a second. I've already set up a couple so we can save some steps, but just to walk you through the process of how you would do this yourself, it starts by using the New button, and we're going to go to More, and we're going to create a Google form, and this is what we're going to use to actually write our quiz. So and you're already familiar with these things because when you get surveys from me and other people, they're given to you as a Google form, so it's the same idea. So all I would need to do here is go ahead and create my form. A couple steps that you probably want to make sure you're paying attention to and actually do is up here at the top under Form Settings. It's probably a good idea if you're using this as some kind of assessment to make sure you check those top two boxes. The first one says require Malone Central School District login. So that means that the students, when you give them this quiz, they're going to have to log into their @maloneschools.org Google account in order to take it. And the reason why that's important is because of the second box. The second box says automatically collect respondents' username. So they're not going to have to put their name on the quiz. This is automatically going to collect it. So we're going to know who it is that responds to each one of these. And you're going to see that this will also let us do another pretty neat thing later on. The other thing I might want to probably check is this box, the fourth one down, that says only allow one response per person. So I'll check that too. And I can give this any name I want to, so I'll just call this quiz, and then I would start writing my questions. And you'll see by default, when you start a form, the first question that it always puts in is a multiple choice question. So I'll write my question here. What color is the sky? And then I would start typing in my options. Now you'll notice that every time I click, in very, very faint down here, it says click to add an option. So you'll see that it kept adding. So I can have as many choices as I want to, or as few as I want to. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and, well, first I need to decide this. Do I want this to be a required question or not? If this is a quiz that you're going to have Flubaroo grade, then yes, you want to make sure that box is checked. What that means is if a student skips a question and doesn't put any answer in, and they try to submit it, it'll stop them and say, hey, you need to answer this question. So we always, for each one of the items we add, we want to make sure we put that required question, we check the box there. So when I'm done with that, I'm not going to hit done yet. I'm going to hit add another item. If I just hit the right there, the button that says add item, it's automatically going to, you'll see, select another multiple choice question to add. There you can see that multiple choice question that I put up there already. Quick way to check for yourself and make sure you did check that box that says required question is if it has a red asterisk after the question, that means it's required. So if you're scanning down through your quiz and you see one that doesn't have that, make sure you go back in, hit the edit button, and check that box. Okay, so now we're going to go back and edit this question. I just wanted to show you that there are, besides multiple choice, there are other kinds of questions that you can put in here. Some of them don't really work well with Flubaroo. One, for instance, is check boxes. Just because a checkbox question, you could check every single one of the boxes. So you could put that in there, though, if you were just looking to get some information from kids, but it doesn't affect their grade. I'm going to show you in Flubaroo how you could do that. So if you just wanted to say, like, you know, who was your teacher for whichever class last year, and here are your choices, and they checked whoever they wanted, we can leave that as an ungraded question. Choose from a list, so that's just a drop-down list. Scale, grid, date, time. Again, a lot of those don't work well with Flubaroo. The other thing I'll mention, though, is the first two, paragraph text and text. So these are open response. The students are actually going to type their answers in, and you can do a mixture of both and I'll show you how that works in a second. They've fixed it now in Flubaroo, so they make it pretty simple for you, and you'll see how that works. So let's say that I've gone through and I've added in all my questions. I've written my entire quiz or test. Down here at the bottom where it says confirmation page, I can change whatever message they're going to see when they hit the submit button. So by default, it always says your response has been recorded. So I might want to also say you will be notified of your grade, okay, or whatever I want to say. And there are a couple of other boxes down here, which again, I'm not for this because I'm using it as a quiz. I'm not going to be doing these things. So I'm good now. So once I've got all that done, remember this is Google, so there's no save button because it's auto-saving all the time. I can go ahead and just X out of that and I'm done. And you'll notice that what it did was, here's the form, here's that quiz that I just created, and it automatically created a spreadsheet to go with it called responses. So if I open that, you can see for each one of my I only wrote one question. So for my only question, there's a column that it created for that, and this is where the student's answers to that multiple choice question would show up. Let me come over here, and this is the sample that I created earlier just so you could see what it looked like. So here's a quiz that I threw together that has 2 multiple choice questions, and then it has an open response question where I ask them a kind of a short answer, like mini essay kind of question that I'm going to want them to type their answers in here, okay? And here is the response sheet. And what I did was I already went in to a test student account and I had that student take the quiz. And by the way, I should show you quickly how to do that. Once you've got your quiz ready and you want to distribute it to students, there are several ways that you could do that. One is, well, we're always going to come here and click on the send form button because this is where we can get our link, the URL for our quiz. I usually just automatically click that button that says short URL because it shortens that address way up. And now all I have to do is hit Control-C on my keyboard and it's copied that address. All right, and I can hit done. And now from there, there are a variety of ways that I could get that address out to my students. If I have a classroom website, I could go to my classroom website and paste it there on a page. If I'm using Google Classroom, I create a new assignment and use the link tool to add the link there so they would be able to go to their classroom and get it that way, and so on. All right. Now, before I go to Flubaroo, though, I need to take the quiz myself because when I take it, we're going to turn that into the answer key. So the easiest way for me to take my own quiz is when I'm looking at the form. Right up here, there's a button that says View Live Form, and when I click that, it's going to open a new tab. And this is what the quiz actually looks like. And again, over here, if you want to get real fancy and stuff, you can change the theme and change the way it's going to look and all that stuff. Again, you can explore that stuff on your own. So I'm looking at the live quiz here, and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to put the correct answers in. And one thing you'll notice is I'm not going to have Flubaroo grade the short answer for me because it can't do that, but this is a required question. The kids can't hit submit and leave this blank. So even though I'm just creating a key that I'm going to want to use for my objective questions, I still have to put something in here, or otherwise I'm not going to be able to submit the form. So I'll just put anything in there. It doesn't matter what I say. Now this button right here, there's no way to get rid of this in Google Forms, and that's kind of for us as teachers a little bit annoying. Says send me a copy of my responses. If I do that, you'll notice I'm logged in up here. It says your username because it's automatically collecting that, remember. I would get an email with basically a screenshot of the page and everything that I answered. This is where we can get into the philosophical discussion of how we want to use this as a tool with our classes, because clearly I wouldn't want to use this as, say, a final exam for a class because, you know, one kid in the class could take it first on their own, send me a copy of my responses, and they've got an email now with the entire test on it that they could then distribute to the rest of the class. That's a failing of pretty much any online assessment that you're going to find is that if kids really want to cheat, or if they're really motivated to cheat, they're going to. So I'm more likely to use something like this as more of a formative assessment rather than some summative assessment at the end of a unit or a chapter. So I'm going to go ahead and hit submit now. I'm going to leave that box unchecked because I don't need that email with my responses. I get that little message, all right? And now I can click off of there. So now you'll notice we went right back to my spreadsheet again with the responses, and you'll see that test students' responses are in there, but now also mine are too, okay? And here's where we're going to get to Flubaroo. So at this point, what I need to do, well, you're going to need to do, I already have, is we're going to need to get Flubaroo. Now, Flubaroo is an add-on, and the only way you're going to see it is by having a spreadsheet open. It doesn't have to be this spreadsheet. I could come back over to Google Drive and just open up a brand new spreadsheet that's blank and do this, and then never use that spreadsheet again. But you have to have a spreadsheet open, okay? And in that spreadsheet, at the top, there's a button that says add-ons. And when I do that, you'll see I already have some add-ons for spreadsheets installed, but you'll go to the button, you're not going to have anything there yet. You'll go to the button that says get add-ons, and it will pop up a little window, and you'll notice like Flubaroo is really super popular with teachers, so it's right there with a huge check mark. And I just have to put my mouse over it, and this green button for you will say install. So all you have to do is click that. And it's going to ask, the first time you install it, it's going to ask, like, it'll pop up saying Flubaroo wants permission to access your account and stuff, and click accept. If you don't accept that, then you're not going to be able to do any of the stuff that I'm showing you. By the way, these are all other free add-ons that you can install that'll do other things for your spreadsheets. Some really cool stuff in there, so if you get a chance, take a look. If you want to know any more about some of those other ones, let me know. Once we have Flubaroo installed, now it'll show up in our add-ons menu. So it's right here. And every time I give a new quiz and I have a new spreadsheet, the first thing I need to do is come here to Flubaroo, and I need to click on the button that says enable Flubaroo in this sheet. And when I do, it does the little working thing, okay, and it tells me it's been enabled. You may now access it from the menu. What it means is if I go back to add-ons now, and I go back to Flubaroo, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of new stuff that's been added, okay? And I'm going to go to the button that says grade assignment. When I do that, the first thing it's going to ask me is, all right, how do you want to grade it? What points do you want to use? So for instance, where it says username, the username, you can kind of see it faintly off here to the side. That's where it automatically collected that because they were logged in. So we're just going to leave that. The one is grayed out, and it's set as identify student. So that's where we're telling Flubaroo that's their username. It's also their email address. That's not going to have a point value associated with it, so we can just leave that alone. And then down here, what we need to do is for these two multiple choice questions, I want to leave those as normal grading, and I can assign a point value to it. And as far as point values, we can go from 1 to 10. So let's say I'm just going to put both of the multiple choice questions at 5 points each. Okay, and then this is my short response. Now, I'm not going to have Flubaroo grade this because it's a short response. So what I want to do is I want to put here, grade by hand. Don't do skip grading, because if you skip grading, there's no way for Flubaroo to go back and let you adjust the grades, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So we want to do grade by hand, and then we need to tell it, just like we did before, how many points is that worth. So I'll say that's worth 10 points. Okay, so once I've gone down through and set the point values for all my questions and how to handle them, I hit continue. Now what it's asking me is, okay, which of the submissions that you have, and you might at this point, if you've given it to all your students, you might have 20 names in here, but it's asking you which one of these is the answer key. So I need to look for mine, all right there, and I need to hit the little button in front of it so it knows that's the answer key, and then I do continue. And now it's grading my assignment. Now this is going to be pretty quick because there's only one student for it to grade, and it's telling me here, and you can read down through this on your own, but I'll tell you what it just did. it created, so if we come down here, if you're familiar with Excel, this works the same way. Within one spreadsheet, you can have different pages or different sheets. So we still have the student submission sheet. So this is where I would come to actually read their short answers. So I might want to, if this was a whole paragraph, what I'm probably going to want to do is adjust the size of that column, but also if I hit the letter that's at the top of the column, and then I come over here and I do text wrapping, and I click the middle button, see what it did. So you can read the whole text inside, and now it doesn't matter how long, it's going to adjust that for me, so I could read that the whole written response. So this is where I would come to read those responses and decide what their grade is. But here's the sheet that Flubaroo added for us with their grades, and you'll see that there was a total of 20 points possible. Okay, and right now it's telling me the average score, the average out of 20 was 5, because our student, remember, had there were only 2 multiple choice questions that have been graded so far, and it got one of the questions right, okay, and it got one wrong. And you'll notice that that's highlighted, because it's going to be showing me, if we had a whole bunch more students in here, what it's going to show me is which questions had the highest frequency of incorrect answers. So that's kind of nice to look at a real fast glance. You know, Jerry has talked about how one of our goals this year is informed decisions. Well, you know, here's coming back to that idea of using this as formative assessment. Here's a way to get a good read on what concepts your students might need more help with before you do get to the summative assessment. So now, remember, we still have that short answer part, though, that hasn't been graded, and that's this right here. So it's got a blank space for me where I can come in and let's say, you know, remember that was out of 10 points. So let's say I've read the student's submission over here, and I decide that out of 10 points, that student got 8 points. Okay, now you'll notice nothing's happened yet, but watch up here what happens to the average points when I click off of that or I hit return. Okay, so now that student just got a 65% as their grade. They got 13 points total out of 20. And you can see up here what's happened to the class average. Okay, so if you want, that's kind of as far as you need to go with this as far as grading goes. Now for secondary, if you're elementary at this point and you're happy with that, you can kind of tune out and hit stop and go on your way. For secondary teachers, if you are middle school or FA, this year our students have their Gmail accounts enabled, but only by default for internal email. So what that means is they can only send email or receive email from an email address that ends with either @maloneschools.org or @malonecsd.org. Okay, so they can send email, we can send email to them, they can send email to us, but they can't kind of reach the outside world. One of the reasons why that's kind of important is because now that we have a grade in here, we can come back up to add-ons, and I can go back to Flubaroo, and you'll see that one of the options is email grades. If I were to click that person then, that student, because it's got their email address for them there, that student would get an email telling them your quiz has been graded, you got a 65%. It's also going to show them what they got and what they got wrong and what the right answer was. So one reason why you might want to be aware of that, if you're in the secondary level and you're going to use that email option, you might want to wait until everybody has taken the quiz, because if you send that out sort of prematurely, then you've got a bunch of answer keys floating around out there. The other option that I'll just mention about Flubaroo is, and this really only works if you're only doing an assessment that's just objective. So if you don't have any open response, one of the other things that you can do is you can set an assignment up to auto grade. And I can't do it here because we've already started this one, but back when I first started this, we could set a sheet up to auto grade, and what that would mean is if it was just being done with objective questions, that as the responses are coming in, it instantly grades them and instantly emails them their grades. So again, on the fly, which is kind of nice and takes a lot of that out of my hands. All right, so hopefully that's helped or maybe piqued your interest in it a little more. If you want some hands-on help to help you get it started or walk through your first quiz or assessment, please don't hesitate to let me know. And hopefully you have been inspired to check out Flubaroo.